welcome to the Bali Effect. This is Preeti Tana.
And this is Dee Dee Perry. Preeti, happy Friday!
I know, again, they come by so fast, I feel. Even during this pandemic.
You know, I think even more so, because I have no sense of time anymore. And it's just like you wake up, it's Friday again, and that's all it is. So this is the new normal.
Mm-hmm. How you doing?
Shitty. I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine now because we're here getting to do this. I must say this week has whooped my behind. You know what I realized I can't do? I had a Bali moment. I realized my behind can no longer pull an all-nighter. It destroys me. If I don't sleep a whole night.
Just now you realize?
You know, I think I've been in denial about it for a while. But, and I think I might have discussed this earlier, but I had to almost pull one. I got like 2.5 hours of sleep at some point because of work. And I'm exhausted still. And that was like solidly 3 days ago. And I can barely keep my eyes open. But here and now, doing this gives me like a shot of adrenaline and caffeine. So after we push stop, I'm out. I'm out. But I'm going to give it all I got. Like just big blast crescendo. How are you doing?
I'm good. We had a busy week. We had a busy week with the Bali Effect. We launched on YouTube. I don't know what to say about that. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, let me go change my outfit.
So we made some adjustments, and that was fun. But I'm happy it's Friday too. It's a long weekend, but that doesn't really mean anything because it'll be the same as every other weekend that I've had since this started.
Well, hopefully you will have more time to yourself because a lot of your time is given to, other pursuits. But you can turn it inward for the next 3 days, I hope.
That's the plan.
All right.
Plan.
Well, let me ask you a question, my dear friend.
Go for it. And, okay.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm about to ask you, so just bear
No,
with me.
we've done this every week now, so I'm a little nervous about this. I do find it fun, but go ahead, go.
All right.
Ask.
So to our listeners out there, the 5 of you, thank you so much. You might not know it, but Tana is an extremely accomplished person in her own right. Yes, she is. And she has a dope career. But I wonder, when you were growing up as a kid, did you have role models that you were able to pattern your future after? And because it said, a kid can't dream about what they don't see. So what did you see or not see?
So I think we've spoken about this in another podcast, so I'm glad this is the question because I have some foundational answer here. But I spent most of my time watching Bollywood movies because that was the big form of entertainment in the household. So for me, I had one side of my parents or whomever telling me I had to do certain things, but I really, watched these movies and thought the actors of the time were so cool and amazing. And that's what I wanted to kind of do. I don't know if I wanted to be a Bollywood actor. I just wanted to sing and dance. This was my sort of understanding of what I thought I should be doing. But I've lost you, Dee. Where are you?
I'm still here and I can see you.
Okay.
Keep going. I'm listening. That's all right. I'm in the action.
So I think that's sort of where I would spend most of my time in the world of music and dance. And so that wasn't all the time, but that was most of my time when I wasn't in school. So that's kind of where I don't know if I don't recall anyone in particular when I was much younger. I think that most of the time I was just trying to figure out this sounds odd, but how to survive. And not so much that it was, that I wasn't thriving or wasn't being taken care of, but it was just a unique experience for me to be this Indian girl in America. not that, just in terms of how I adjusted and coming home versus going to school. And I felt like every day I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. And I never really got the answer to that.
Well, you seem to have found your way, certainly with what you were working with. Was your aspiration to become somehow connected to the Bollywood movie scene or something else?
Probably. Oh, there you are. Probably, but there are some limiting factors, most poignantly that I couldn't speak Hindi at the time or understand it. But I think I just wanted to be in this world that was sort of fun and exciting, and it seemed to be colorful and alive. And I think when I was growing up, I always felt that I was living in this sort of very strict black and white world. And so those avenues of creativity, music, dance, acting, whatever it was, that allowed me to feel as though I was really tapping into what I would consider life. I don't know. I don't know that I even allowed myself to say, oh, you can do something like this, or you can be something other than a doctor, which is what I thought I wanted to be for a very long time. So it was more of that's over here and out there, and you are here, and this is what you're doing, which is, kind of why I'm so excited to talk to our guest today, because I think some of these themes are going to come up.
I don't know. Well, I certainly have a lot of questions. Who we have in the house? Well, I mean in his house, not our house, because we're all in our own houses.
We're all in our own homes.
Who's our guest here today?
Writer, actor, comedian Tarun Shetty is here from Los Angeles. Hey, Tarun.
Hey, how are you?
How's it going? Tarun, I've known Tarun for a little while, and I can't wait to get into all the fun stuff that he's doing and sort of ask him some of the questions that we've been excited to ask. But Tarun, rumor has it that you grew up in this small town in New Hampshire.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was good. I was really lucky. I grew up in Laconia, New Hampshire. And it was almost like that show, The Wonder Years in the 80s. Where it was like a suburban, upbringing with a lot of white people. We were the only Indians in our town, and my dad had a pretty good medical practice, and it was an idyllic life. So I think I was really privileged to grow up there with good people and values.
Did you have?
Go ahead, Dee. You know what the thing is? I'm getting a delay, but we're gonna try and figure this out. Go ahead.
No, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek. Was there a middle-aged white man narrating your thoughts in your mind when you were growing up, like Ben Savage?
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely was it Daniel Stern, the host, the narrator of it? Daniel Stern's voice was in my head nonstop.
I thought it was that tennis player, McEnroe. Oh no, different show, same concept. But...
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
No, it was great. It was great. I really think a lot of who I am as a person today came from growing up in New Hampshire, like having classic American values and just, being that New Hampshire kid. So I think I bring a lot of that to my comedy and just life perspective.
Now, as a kid, Go ahead.
This is really funny because just yesterday we were like, we finally figured out the visual cues on doing this podcast, but I'm going to claim the delay. But Tarun, you guys, you didn't have a lot of Indian family friends, did you?
We did, but they were like an hour, 2 hours away. Like there was a big Indian population in Massachusetts. So a lot of Indians grow up like this. Like there's a lot of get-togethers with Indian families, and they all congregate at somebody's house on a weekend, and they, people would dress up in their saris, and just a way for people who came from India to reconnect with their culture. So we were definitely privy to that, and that happened like once a month, twice a month, where we'd drive to Massachusetts, to Andover, Boston, wherever, to meet up with families.
Preeti, you got one, or can I go?
This is like, we're doing so well.
I know.
It's like a game show.
It is. It is. And
turn it into one.
So as a child, was a future in comedy something that you envisioned for yourself, or was there a different set of expectations?
No, it was something I enjoyed doing. Like I was writing comedy things just as a kid, not knowing anything about it, but like I was just trying to write sketches just because I liked doing it. Like when I was like 12, but I never really envisioned. I really liked writing, but I wasn't that ambitious where I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my career, or like, oh, how I'm gonna sustain myself. It was just kind of, it was things that happened organically as a kid that kind of developed as I got older.
So it's interesting. Sarah Silverman said 100% of comedians become comedians because somewhere in their childhood, they needed to be funny in order to survive. Does that resonate with you at all? Because she's kind of out there, hey, and they say, 99% of statistics are made up on the spot. So what does she know?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Sarah Silverman. I actually met her once because I know she's from New Hampshire. I don't know. I think I could have survived without being funny. Just being, there were moments I had in high school where I was funny, but I didn't rely on it to survive. I relied more on being able to be invisible, which is being like a classic Indian kid of just putting your head down and working. Like that. I went to boarding school, which can be kind of savage at times. So I could easily just disappear if I wanted to. Like that was my survival technique, to just not be conspicuous.
Now I got to veer off script too, because I went to boarding school as well. May I ask, in that environment, as a person of color, I felt it very difficult to not stand out by virtue of shit that I had no control over. I shouldn't describe it as shit, but you know what I mean. Visually, it's what they call it, the spot in the milk. So when you say that you were wanting to be invisible, what do you mean by that?
I just mean don't draw attention to yourself. I think some kids can form identities of how they are, like in terms of, oh, I'm the funny guy, I'm the athletic kid, I'm the pretty girl, whatever that identity is in high school. Maybe it's from growing up in New Hampshire. Like even my boarding school was very, white predominant, but I could even in that setting, I was okay with just doing my thing and just not calling attention to myself. I think later on, I started doing more outgoing things like drama club, whatever. But for the most part, I kind of figured out how to not draw attention to myself.
So when did you realize that you were funny?
I haven't realized that yet. That's worth it.
I'm like, I don't know. It might be questionable still. He is funny, actually.
He's very funny. Very, very funny. You're the second guy that we're speaking to who describes being very, like, I'm assuming studious, quiet, low key in the high school phase, but then blossoming out to something much more extroverted and colorful. So by the time that you were getting ready to go to college, what did you have in mind for wanting to study and pursue?
Well, I wanted to be a TV writer. That's what the initial genesis of it was. So I started doing stand-up just to learn how to write jokes, like in Boston, and then I started interning for a TV show called Spin City, which was, Michael J. Fox. I was like a writer.
Whoa!
Really cool. So I got to see how they, put together scripts and put the jokes in the stories, etc. But I was also doing stand-up through college. So when I graduated, it was almost like, two roads I could have gone down, and I wanted to keep going in New York because I felt like something to said to keep going what I was doing. And plus, writing, I felt like at the time, it was just so behind the scenes, and I really wanted to be more of a performer at that time.
So were your parents okay with you going to school and not focusing on anything that had like more in the creative field? Were they very supportive of whatever you guys wanted to do? So you guys, because I know your brothers, but.
Yes. Obviously, my brother Neil. So Neil he followed the traditional thing. So I was lucky I had an older brother who kind of took that bullet. And yeah, I'm sure they were concerned, but they never tried to hinder me in any way whatsoever or told me not to do something. So I feel like I lucked out with parents, because I know sometimes Indian parents they can stymie your whole progress, creative endeavors. And I got really lucky that my parents were supportive.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare, actually.
Yeah.
Were your early years like straight out of college, doing stand-up, what you expected they were going to be?
Yes and no. I mean, I think there's like an ego with me. There was. I mean, I definitely felt like I progressed fast and I would rise fast, and like those breaks definitely did not happen, the way I would like them to. In retrospect, it probably happened for the best, but it was hard. It was definitely, New York's like a grind out there, especially the comedy scene, like passing out. I was passing out flyers for stage time. I was working the door at comedy clubs. So it was extremely challenging, when you see this other route you can go down of just meritocracy of going to school, graduate school, whatever. Instead, you're outside in the street passing out flyers to people like walking by you in the cold. It's a hard thing, but for some reason I felt like that was what I had to do at that moment in time.
Well, what kept you going? Because I think it's pretty easy for someone to be like, this is crap. I can't keep standing out here passing out flyers, or it's been, a year or 2 years and I don't know if this is true. I haven't really progressed the way I thought I should. What were some of the things where you said, besides saying this is what I want to be doing, was there something else that you tapped into that said, hey, ever, man, I can't imagine doing anything else?
I mean, honestly, it was probably ego, just as a kid thinking, oh, I'll get my shot eventually. Like, it'll just happen. Like, there was a lot of idealism, especially in your 20s, like the way you think, the way I thought. And I would see people sometimes, blow up, and I would be like, well, I still think like that. Like, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have some hope. Like, even though I do it now more for the enjoyment of it, like back then it was like I had to reach certain benchmarks to be happy, and I saw that around me. So I thought it was just a matter of time before, and I had some I had some pretty close breaks, but it is what it is. So you just kind of go with the flow of it.
What was your measure for success because you've been at this for decades, which is incredible and inspiring. When you first started out, what was your measure for success, and has that evolved over time?
Yes, I mean, the measure for success for me when I was starting out, it was definitely to make money, to be famous, I didn't understand the business that well. All I could see was what in front of you, what was in front of me, and I was just a kid. So I would just see guys from LA, like I'd be like working there at the comedy club in Boston, comedy club, and see like Tracy Morgan come down in his Bentley or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, this is what success is, because he'd go right on stage. Or Jay Moore was hot at the time, this comedy actor. So I was like, I guess that's what it is when you have people just, kissing your ass and you're just crushing on stage. I mean, these guys were good comics too. But for me, I was like, I guess there's a tangible thing you can see around you which equates success, which I mean, I was a kid too. I was in my early 20s and I didn't know anything else. And as I got older, you start seeing other life perspective. You start seeing how fleeting it is. You see people come up, go down. You see people randomly pop through different avenues. Like, there's this whole world that people don't really understand about comedy. And I feel really lucky that I was able to come up young, because I got to see, like, when I was working the door, like Kevin Hart was like doing spots, normal 10 o'clock spots. So I got to see people come up and rise, but I saw people like crash and burn. And I feel like I'm more about the journey of it now. Like, if I can do what I'm doing and I can sustain myself, I feel like I'm successful, without having to get all the adulation.
Something.
I know we want to get to this later, Dee, but I actually think this is a good segue. So in preparing for this, I think I told you we do research. A lot of times, sometimes we both know who we have on because it's somebody we have in common, and sometimes we have no idea. But I came across, so I thought I knew all of your stuff because I'm following you on social media, but I came across your vlogs on YouTube. And I was super interested because a lot of them, I can't say that I watched everyone, but some of them really touched on a very mature sort of thought process around life and spirituality. And I'm just wondering when that became, because your comment just now, like, I find different ways of, it's not that's not the same measure of success I had when I was younger is not what it is now. When did you start to sort of think about those things differently and start to become more spiritual or more, it's funny because I didn't know that about you until I watched the vlogs. Not that I should, but it just never came up.
Well, I've told you this personally, like, there was a time when I tried to like really step back from the business and work behind the scenes, and I wasn't happy. So I did work, transcendental meditation. I started doing martial arts. I started just changing different parts where it wasn't just all comedy. And I felt like that really broadened me as a person, being able to see different avenues and just make mistakes more and just not be so myopic. It's got to be one way or the other. So that alone, even those blogs, like I used to have another YouTube channel back in the day called Raising Daisy. And we had one of the first YouTube partners. We had like a lot of followers, and every video we got was like 30, 40,000. And so, sometimes I was thinking, well, why am I even doing these blogs? Because like really, they don't get like maybe under 100 views if I'm lucky, because the algorithms change so much on YouTube. But for me, there's a certain fan base that watches it, maybe, whatever it is, and they always write me, and it helps them, and I feel like it helps me too, just to express myself in a different avenue without being it in sketch form or writing. It's just like another form of human spirit, which you can convey through YouTube, which I like a lot. So that's why I've been doing those vlogs.
So I think they're great. And I don't know if they've come up more during this time in your home, and it's sort of the way your creativity is sort of transforming because you are home, but I think they're very authentic. And that's what I find so interesting about your journey specifically now. So I can see why people, because you equate a lot of your life experiences to that spiritual journey, which we know, I think we're all kind of searching a little bit for what we're supposed to be doing.
I want to ask a question that he touched on earlier about comics. Ironically, this is the grand irony from someone who's not funny at all. I think that all comics are like jokers. I think they're these happy-go-lucky people that just make everything better. And I think, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Preeti and Tarun. We're friends now, so I will share this with you and our 5 viewers. I have a phobia of clowns, and it all started very vividly when I'm getting to a point. It started when I was 3 years old. My brother and I have a twin. What's up, Franklin, if you ever listen. And we were asked to be on this like Jerry Lewis telethon at our, like on behalf of our school. And we got brought down to the little local news station in our town. Felt like a big deal. And we had to go to the green room, my first green room at 3 years old. And Ronald McDonald was there and other people. But of course, a 3-year-old is like, Ronald. But Ronald was in the corner looking sad as hell. His head was hung down. He was in full makeup in the costume. And that sight burned like scars into my brain. I'm like, but they're supposed to smile. How is this? How is he not happy? It deeply disturbed me. I'm getting worked up again just thinking about it. I kid you not. And from that moment on, I've had a thing about clowns. Like, it's all front. So comedians, later on, I came to hear, also struggle with this duality of, on the one hand, this gift for making people laugh, but also feeling a deep amount of inner tumult. Can you speak to any of that? Have you experienced any of that? Does it influence any of your work?
Yeah, I mean, I do struggle time to time from just sadness, which is just don't know if it comes from comedy or just life stuff, but I mean, it's definitely part of my wiring of to have those highs and lows. And for a while, it did fuel my comedy where it was really dark, where I was like, oh, I'm the dark comedian because I'm just going to process everything that's in my head. But then I realized that you can kind of filter out those thoughts, and you have to just be aware of it and not let it run through you like a Mack truck. And I'm sure that's not just comedians, that's people in general dealing with their own life day to day. In terms of your question about comedy and depression, yeah, I've seen that all around. Like a couple of my friends have killed themselves. I mean, I've seen that all the time.
Oh my God.
Comedy Store is a big club here. You know, there's a definitely dark vibe to that whole energy. You know, they thrive off the negative depression, whatever, of comics, and that can be funny too. You know, this way you twist it. But I think it's part of the fabric of comedy. It's been around forever. I don't know. I can't explain why that is. You know, I'm sure you can research, but like Robin Williams to whoever, Jonathan Winters, like it's part of the history of comedy. But it's definitely not something which obsesses, makes me, it's not my identity for sure. Like I don't make that my identity at all.
And what do you do to stay on the sunny side?
Well, I think in general, just as a person, not just being a comedian, everyone's got to figure out how their brain works, like what triggers them, like what makes them sad, what makes them happy, and be aware of that so you can catch it early. You're not that person. There's like another layer underneath that, so you can latch onto that and be present versus, you know, past, future, and be locked into some human, you know, mental construct that we're creating in our mind. Like that's just like basic spirituality 101. So I don't think it's just comedy. I think for me, it's just being aware and going moment to moment and doing what I like to do. Drinking coffee. I like making my videos. I like making my vlogs, and you kind of make it simple. And that's made it a lot easier.
I love it. I love it. You know, I have a couple friends who have restaurants or work in the food industry, and I find that they are some of the people I hate going out to eat with because they have such high standards. I'm curious, what do you find funny?
What do I find funny?
Mm-hmm.
I find I'll tell you what I find funny. This is a secret. Like I don't even like watching stand-up sometimes, you know, because it's just I've seen so much stand-up. But if I see someone go on stage for the very first time on stage, like I have to watch it because it's their very first time and they're doing things that's so organic and authentic that you can't fake being on stage for the first time without being locked into a routine or whatever. They're just doing things that they're not realizing they're doing, and they might not be getting any laughs at all. But for me, that's interesting, and can be sometimes hilarious to see that. You know, whether it's a train wreck or it's hilarious to see that freshness to it. So I guess there's this, anything that's an attempt of being original is very funny to me.
Do you remember your first time? Comedy.
Yeah, I do. It was a bad show, and it was pretty awful. I don't think I get any laughs, and that was it. It was fine. I mean, it was my first time on stage, but it was definitely awkward. I definitely made it awkward because I didn't understand anything. But, you know, I knew that going in, though. I knew that it was not going to be pretty. So I tried to just rebound.
So now that you've done stand-up for a while, what do you feel when you get up there? You grab that microphone and you're just killing it. How does that make you feel?
It feels good. Honestly, though, I don't really feel stand-up is like even my main forte. Like I feel like I can survive on stage, but I never felt like I'm this. I felt like I can manageable comedian. I can do a lot of different shows. I have an act, but I never felt like I was really living, you know, my purpose on stage where I'm just this visceral connection. Like I sort of do it. In fact, I started doing a character on stage like maybe like a year, 2 years ago, and that does better than my normal act. It's because it's like a different energy to it. So it's this weird, stand-up is different for everybody. And I hate to say that it's based on how much laughs you get, but just to stick to your question, it does feel good to have that authentic connection with an audience, you know, right in front of you. You tell a joke, you get laughs right back.
It's a great segue to my question that you set up for me so nicely, Tarun. Who is Bobby Kahn?
Bobby Kahn is a Bollywood character from India. He's trying to make it in Hollywood, and it's a movie. It's a movie character I did for a feature movie that I produced and co-wrote and acted in 2010. So yeah, that's where the character came from, a sketch actually from Showbiz India, where I used to host a TV show. So we used to have these different comedy sketches, and we did like a Bobby Kahn sketch about this Indian guy play off of Shah Rukh Khan, who's a big Bollywood star. So it started there and just progressed.
Dee Dee's very familiar with Shah Rukh Khan. She loves his movies.
I got to meet
true story,
him, but
Dee.
you know, not dropping no names. Y'all put it out there. It wasn't me. So if you just reference the fact that you were super multi-hyphenate, but you started out wanting to, or it sounded like you were pursuing just the comedy. When did you branch out to the other things, and why? What led to that blossoming?
Well, I always felt the stand-up would eventually take me there at some point, because I knew if it came close. I had a couple meetings to be like writers for like different people. It's never evolved. But I've heard stories of comics starting as stand-ups and they evolve to different things. And when it wasn't happening, like there's no lifeboats coming. When I realized that, and I got to LA, I got hired on a TV show where I was a host, and we had our own segment, and we got to produce our own work. And I was like, wow, we can actually just make our own stuff. Like, you can do that. And I went to school with Andy Samberg. Like, he was in a couple of my classes. And so I just remember when I talked to him out here, he blew up. Like, he was making his own stuff, and he got on SNL. So, I mean, that was in the back of my head. I was like, all right, I went to film school. I know how to make stuff. But to actually make stuff guerrilla style, that was a new skill that I had to learn out here and develop. And it was something that it was always in the back of my mind. I just never acted on it until I got to LA.
And about how many years was that kind of awakening to, like, wait, I just got to be my own, put my own S on my chest and be my own Superman?
It took 7 years. I mean, 7 years between going to school, 3 years in New York, and then came out here. And then when I got to LA, that's when I started picking up making my own stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
How does that
I recently read your book, Laughing in Hell.
I appreciate
it. What's it called? I don't want them to miss the title. Say it again.
We will put it in all of our, I think, Laughing in Hell is what it's called. This is what it looks like.
Yay.
So it's obviously not solely based on your experience. I mean, it is based on your experience. I think it exaggerates in a couple areas. But when did you decide to write this, and why did you want to put this out there?
I just wanted to write something that was kind of based on true experiences. Like, a lot of the stories are true, sad as that is. So, and I wanted to not hold anything back.
I tell you what, Dee, you haven't read it, right? It will.
No,
that
but I'd
first
love
paragraph
to hear one of those stories.
Yeah, even the first paragraph. That first paragraph, I was like, should I water this down? I was like, you know what? Let me just put exactly how it was being a comic. Like.
I was reading it. No, I was reading it, and I'm like, no, wait, no, okay, all right, that's where he is going with this. And it took me a couple seconds to realize what was going on. And this is the teaser for you, Dee Dee, to go get it and read it, because the first paragraph will capture you for the rest of the time. But so, I mean, some of it, well, it wasn't all true. I mean, I think there were some parts. Wait, did you really meet a Bollywood actress and then she helped you become this big star?
I mean, I was working on a show, and I don't want to drop anything specifically, but like a lot of those things, I didn't become a huge star, but I mean, I was cast on a Disney show, like a lot of things did happen, from that I just took from my life and dropped it into that book. And I wanted to make sure that was in the book. So that way I just had it for myself. It was more of like an expression. It's like a novella where I was like, just wanted to have something that reflected, and you're right, it is, a lot of it's exaggerated. In fact, let me just say, it's not based on anybody real, so I don't get sued. It's not based on anybody real. Everything's fiction. But I wanted it to just have an expression, have that part of my life in a book form.
I've heard it said that All fiction is autobiography, and all autobiography is fiction. So there you go. I don't know if that
That's
resonates.
true.
But so how do you feel best describing where you are now as an artist?
I feel good. In fact, I was just telling a friend of mine, I was like, I think I'm living my ideal life aside from the lockdown does suck, but I mean, I make my own stuff. Like I've been writing nonstop, behind the scenes. Like I work out at night. Like everything's pretty good. Like obviously, like I need my income stream, which will come when auditions pick up again. I mean, I make my living pretty much off commercial acting and print modeling and occasional TV stuff. But creatively as an artist, it's pretty good. Like I'm very self-sufficient. I can make whatever I want to make. I can write what I want to write. So I feel very blessed that I have the knowledge and the skill to do that. So I feel good about it.
You seem very Zen-like about this. I think that being in California, being in cramped up New York right now, anything feels like a better place to be. But do you have any advice perhaps for any of our listeners who might be on the cusp of wanting to start something that seems absolutely impossible, like economically, in terms of feasibility, but it's what their soul just feels led to do? I'm asking for myself and not a friend.
Yeah, well, I was telling someone today, here's a quick story. So my friend asked me to join a writers group on Zoom, right? So I went to that, and it really wasn't for me. Like the writers group was fine; they were all fine. But I told my friend I get more out of actually doing the work. I don't need someone to tell me to motivate me to work. And I appreciate all the opinions, but I was like, for me, you have to just do the work and execute. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. You've got to do the work. Like you can talk about writing, you can talk about acting, you can talk about producing, but you actually do it and do things that are manageable so you can do it consistently and get better and develop. That's how you grow as an artist, in my opinion. I mean, that's just what I've taken away from it. And if you can't do that, then you should be in places where you're around people like that. And the writers group's great. You can talk to other writers. If you want to be an actor, take acting classes. You can be around other actors. You can figure out stuff about the community. You can always learn, but at the end of the day, you have to do the actual work to advance and perfect your craft.
No shortcuts.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. No, that's tremendous. Thank you for that.
But Dee, we were talking about this the other day, even with the podcast and just some of the stuff we were wanting to put out there. And we always come back to the same thing, which is the rest of it doesn't matter. Let's just do the podcast. So people will ask us, why are you doing it? What's the end goal? There is no, I mean, we just like doing the podcast. And it's interesting how many people keep asking that question of why you're doing it. And so I think, Tarun, it's great for people to just create, whatever your medium is. To your point, if you need some sort of external motivation, get it, but just to keep doing it regardless.
Yeah, look, when I made that feature movie, me and my partner, we were like, well, we were trying to raise money for years, and we were like, let's just start shooting a movie, and we started shooting on weekends. It took us like 3 years to finish it. So that happened only because we actually went out and did it. I was talking to another friend. We were going to shoot another series, and he was like, well, if we shoot, I was like, why are we doing this? I was like, are you behind the idea? So, well, if we can do this, we can cash in on the South Asian thing, which we can take. And I was like, dude, you're thinking of like X, Y, Z, like 10 steps ahead. Like, do you even want that? I don't want that. Like, who knows where it's going to take you? So, I mean, you've got to be really married to the idea and the execution of it and the journey of it without thinking about the actual result of where you're going.
With all that you've learned on your journey thus far, what would Tarun of today tell the graduating Tarun of NYU, coming straight out of film school, about how to get through the next leg of the journey?
I mean, maybe start meditating earlier. I mean, there's really, honestly, I used to think about that before. If I would definitely not want to do it all over again because it was too much, just too much mentally, emotionally. But I would try to enjoy enjoy it more. Like I definitely didn't enjoy my life where I thought maybe as being a South Asian guy, you feel like you have to just, when we study in school, like this is part of the deal of advancing. You've got to just grind it out. And I thought that was part of it. I have to grind it out and punish myself. That's the way to advance. That's BS. I mean, you can enjoy the journey too, you know, and I feel like I did not give myself permission to do that coming up as a young kid.
Well, I hope you're giving yourself that permission now, because you're still a young guy and you're still very handsome, and you look, the sky's the limit.
Oh, thanks.
And you're in LA. You're in La La Land. Anything is possible.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, it's day to day too. I mean, every day is different. It's still not perfectly easy. It's not a struggle, but I mean, it's a different, innovative day, and I've got to just be the best version of myself, whatever challenges come up.
And there are some days where you're not, and there are some days that suck. But I guess your point is just keep going, you know, because it's sort of, that I think is the best thing about getting older. When you said I wouldn't want to do it again, sometimes I think about that, and I'm like, I wouldn't mind some of the things of youth. Just more like sometimes I can't see in the dark. Actually, I can't see in the dark anymore. But I would not mentally want to go back to that space at all. Because I think that's the best part of getting older. You know, the grooviness of sort of settling into who you are and what you're supposed to be, or just who you are. That's a big one in and of itself.
Yes, for sure. In fact, I've been doing these vlogs since like 2008 when I had my old channel. So you can pull up like an old vlog from like 2008 or 9, Clarence Thoughts, on raisingdaisy.com. And it's like a different person. I'm like, who is this person even? Like I was just trying to be this, you know, young, cocky kid. And I was like, man, if that's how I was, like, thank God I went through XYZ so I can get to this point. So maybe there was like a silver lining going through whatever you had to do, you know, to reach another state of mind.
Well, we will certainly be following the next portions of the evolution as they unfold. I firmly believe you've got still more years ahead of you than you got behind you. So press on and shine on. Let's hope. Darren, where can people follow you, find you, like you, stay connected?
Well, wait, before we get to that, I think we have a couple more minutes. I have a big question.
Go for it.
What is the next iteration of Darren? Like, where are you focusing your time and energy right now? And we talked a little bit about the vlogs, but if you were to say, hey, in 2 years, I hope my creativity takes me here, or this is what I hope to sort of produce, what does that look like?
Sure. Well, I wrote another book. Like, the first one was like more like a novella, so I can practice. The second was like a real book. So I've been working at that for like 1.5 years, and I finished that. So I'm really happy about that. I'd love to have like
Congrats.
it'd be cool. I mean, it's really hard, but I'd love to have like that part of like my life of just like writing content. And I'd also like to create, you know, be a content creator and have like my own brand of some sort where I'm making like a show where I can produce and, you know, direct and act, hopefully on my own. So I'm always searching for that. And the way I do that is through Instagram, putting stuff on Facebook, seeing what resonates, seeing how it resonates with me, and just keeping that train moving forward.
Your book, what sort of is it another fiction novel? What is it?
Same thing. It's a fiction novel.
New one.
Yeah, it's about a kid who goes to boarding school and it's how he adapts to boarding school. So yeah, I put a lot of, again, it's all fiction again, but it took me a long time to actually write that book, and I'm really happy with it. And, you know, I feel like you asked me about what I would tell myself when I was younger. I'm trying to play the Hollywood game a lot more. Like when I was coming up, I just said, F you to Hollywood, I'm not going to audition. And now I'm really trying to play the Hollywood game as well. Like I did a few TV things this past year, movie things, because I've been trying to just be more mainstream. Like I realized I can't do it all by myself. And a lot of these things can synergize together and help each other and elevate each other. So I'm trying to play the game a little bit better.
Think it's a little easier for you to do now than it was back then? Mentally?
Mentally, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just as an actor, sometimes it's hard because I think youth, rules Hollywood, and they're always looking for the next guy. So, but mentally, I'm way stronger for sure. Like you can throw a brick at me, I won't even move. It's fine. And I also feel good, like working behind the scenes. I understand that business, like that used to scare me. Like, talking with agents and like business people. Like I understand that world fairly well, and I'm like, that does not scare me at all anymore. So I feel really secure about who I am and what I'm making. And if people say no, that's also okay. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that resilience is pretty amazing. I feel like many people at that first stand-up comedy who, where no one laughed at your jokes would be like, okay, this is not something I can do. And I feel like it's worth noting that, resilience is a big part of this game, right? Because you got to keep doing it. I mean, you're going to get 1,001 no's. I'm not saying it as if I know. You're going to get 1,000,000 no's before you get that one yes. That's what I think.
Well, there's also like a delusion with like young kids where I think a lot of my comic friends, it's like the way they just believed in themselves. It was almost like, this is insane. Like, this is crazy, the way how much they believed in themselves. And it's so hard, but you can always break through. Like I've seen it happen with many people. You can break through, but you just got to get that one spark, and a lot of it's timing as well. It's got to work in your favor.
Did you always
Timing,
believe in yourself?
Go ahead.
Did you always
like that
believe
question.
in yourself?
I did believe in myself probably not as a comedian, as a stand-up, but definitely as a filmmaker and as a writer for sure, and as an actor. Like I definitely felt like I could have done damage in certain areas. Probably like comedy-wise, stand-up, like I had some horrible sets that were in front of big-time showcases for big-time people because I probably was just too scared. Because the thing about being so spread out is sometimes it can diffuse your confidence as well. Because I wasn't on the road nonstop, but when I would just do stand-up nonstop every night, it's like you're a different person on stage. But when you're in LA, it's hard to just do that. You can't just do stand-up and tour in Tennessee and come back. You've got to be doing so many different things. So that's why New York's such a great comedy place, because people are just about stand-up, and that's why they're killers on stage in New York.
Never knew that.
Tarun, you're not currently, but you're 55 years old. Where are you and what are you doing? He's not 55 now, so way into the future.
I'm doing the Bali Effect. I'm doing another.
Yes.
We're doing repeats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping. I'm just doing. I'm making what I want to make, and I'm happy moment to moment. I mean, if I can do that, if I've found peace of mind and I can sustain this, and I've got good people around me, then I'm good with that.
Are you looking to motivate or inspire or be a role model for the artists coming behind you?
Yes and no. I mean, I definitely don't try to make stuff for artists. I try to make stuff for my audience, in terms of like what they want. But I've had many people write to me, in terms of like advice, and I try to help them as much as possible. Like my blog, I've tried to do that. Tell them from my experiences. Like I wish I had like a mentor to like show me the way. It's also changed a lot for South Asians, especially the past 5 years, even past 2 years has changed. So if it has helped, I know like DCOC was a web series I made. I know that influenced a lot, and a lot of people have been emailing like, oh, you guys did this show. It's like a show right now about Indians. And my friends were like, oh, you did a similar show about DCOC, XYZ 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I'm glad. I hope that did inspire people. I think that's what's great about being an artist, is having a legacy and having stuff that can actually motivate people and change the culture. So if we did that, awesome. I feel great about that.
You did that, and I think, look, from personal experience, and I was talking to Didi about this. I think when we grew up, we didn't see a lot of South Asians represented in the arts. And you just mentioned it's changed, but I was always drawn to really, truly anyone in that space who was doing it anyway, that I knew, that I came across, right? We certainly had a few folks here and there, but I that is one of the reasons, that we wanted to talk to you, and one of the reasons why I do find you so phenomenal, that you started and you never really deviated. It didn't matter that no one else was really around, or that you didn't have, a bunch of South Asians doing it. So I think that's inspirational for anyone who feels as though, like, I don't know, man, I don't see anyone like me doing this, or I don't see a path forward, because you really didn't have a role, like a South Asian role model, did you? I at least I don't recall.
No, but it's
anyone
also
at the time.
I mean, Cal Penn was definitely there acting wise, and Russell Peters was ahead of me comedy wise.
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah.
But it's almost like an ignorance to it, where you don't really think about it because it hasn't really been done. So you're just like kind of part of the flow. I mean, I definitely saw the parts, the limited parts. That's why I started shooting my own stuff. But I never thought, oh, woe is me. What am I going to do about the opportunity in the future? I never saw this coming, like the South Asian movement and Indians and diversity, which is
it's phenomenal. I think, I think it's really, really spectacular. And I think it took a long time, actually, which, but better late than never. We are.
I have
Go
a
ahead,
question.
Dee.
I have so many questions. The title of your novella, Laughing in Hell, it kind of makes me think of the pandemic, that at moments really feels like, damn it, hell. Do you have any pearls that you would like to share on how we can see the silver in all these clouds?
Oh, well, I just made a vlog about that because pull up two quick things. So I usually do jujitsu a lot, and I usually go to the gym a lot. It's part of my life, like working out. And
Nice.
I hurt my leg running on the streets because like I was running so much. So I got compartment syndrome on my right leg. So I need surgery. So it was a whole thing. I had to like go to the orthopedic on Zoom and da. And so I was just really not feeling well about the whole thing. So I went to Malibu like last week to just sit by the ocean. I was like, let me just find some equanimity. And then I dropped my phone in like the rocks. So like I lost my phone. Like so I lost my phone, and the surgery thing was like over my head. And for like just everything was just like, you know what, screw it, whatever. And I realized it's just a matter of just taking things one day at a time. Like, yeah, I'll be on crutches. I'm gonna get through it eventually. I had to get a new phone. I had to go to Verizon. It was a whole thing. I got through it one day at a time. So I really feel like in the pandemic, if you're struggling, it's manageable. You just got to see things, what's in front of you without being so overwhelmed by what could be a big problem in the future. Like, live now, right in the moment, versus being overwhelmed, having this onerous thing weigh down on you.
Malibu is truly one of my happy places. So even if my leg was broke and my phone was jacked up on a rock, I'd still be in a good place. And so I appreciate you being able to, there's still things to be grateful for.
Yes, absolutely.
Man, I want to be in Malibu now. Maybe I'll risk it. They're lifting the restrictions.
I think you can fly. That's for another time. Yeah. Tarun, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone wants to check out Tarun, which I highly recommend, you can find him. Let me see if I get this right. You can find him on all the socials, Facebook and Instagram, Tarun Shetty. You can find him on YouTube at Tarun's Thoughts. And you have a website. No, did I get
is YouTube.
See, I knew I was going to get them mixed up.
Right.
Say that again. What's on YouTube?
It's called Think Tarun Productions. And also I have like 3 different Facebook pages. Like I got kicked off of Facebook years ago because I did like a travel show. And so my old Facebook page is still live, but I have no access to it. It's weird. So there's another Facebook page. It's me because it has like updated videos. And there's one page with like a lot of fans. I have no access to that. So don't add me on that. at all.
Wait, you were a Facebook reject and we didn't get to that? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a story, but I'll have to get it another time.
Well, we can do that on Tarun Shetty Part 2 in several years. Like
It's
he's
a
already
mark of
committed to our
distinction.
Bali Effect podcast.
When I'm 55.
Yes. Yes.
That's true,
yes.
which is very, very, very far away. All right, so check him out. And that's it. That's a wrap for us. Thanks, Tarun.
Hey, thanks for having
Thank you.
me. Best of luck to both of you.
Thank you. You too. We'll be watching.
Cool. See you. Bye.
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 And scene.